And welcome back to the 4th episode of the best possible series out there to determine the better game between Breath of the Wild and the most recent game, Tears of the Kingdom. I've been having a lot of fun making this series, and I hope you all felt the same way about watching it. Without wasting too much time, let's just back it up a bit for newcomers. Each episode is over a full overall topic. For example, today's topic is dungeons. Every overall category has 3 mini-categories that are talked about, and each mini-category that is talked about earns a point with either Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. The game with the most points from the mini-categories at the end of the episode adds 1 point to what is working to be the final score. As a reminder, the score right now is Tears of the Kingdom 2 and Breath of the Wild 1. This adds up to 3 because there have been 3 episodes. Make sense? Good. Apart from that, you, my viewers, have the chance to participate in what the score is too. After every episode, I release a poll of the topic, and whatever the most voted is adds a mini category point. Alright, now that you all know how it works, let's discuss what we are talking about in today's episode. The overall topic is the dungeons, with 3 mini categories of dungeon environment, puzzles, and sage power or champion powers. Well, more like rewards. Yes, I know those fall more into a gameplay mechanic category, but we didn't discuss them in the last episode, so now is the best time to. Besides, you get all these powers for the dungeons or from the dungeons, so I think it fits the category. Bosses are also a very big part of the dungeon, so I will be placing those in the mini category of environment. Dungeons are a great part of Zelda games. They are essentially the parts with the biggest puzzles in the game and progress you throughout the story more. When Breath of the Wild came out, people were obviously astonished and filled with wonder for what this new game would bring. It was a fresh new experience in a fresh new timeline. In fact, no one even knows where it places on the official Zelda timeline that Nintendo came out with, but that's a bit more complicated and getting off topic. The point is, it's a totally new game with totally new dungeons. Dungeons have been these places filled with enemies and mini-bosses with keys to find to unlock doors and get to the next room. Eventually, you get a boss key and fight the boss. That's not how Breath of the Wild did it, though. Nintendo decided to go with a totally new approach in Breath of the Wild, and the 4 dungeons of the game took place in Gerudo, Hebra, Eldin, and Lanayru. You, the hero Link, was sent to free these mechanical beings that were being controlled by Calamity Ganon's malice. You had to seek out the 4 divine beasts around the land, and go through them to activate its main control unit. Zelda dungeons in the past have been known for their cool designs and puzzles, however every single divine beast had the same Sheikah design on them. They had the same walls with the same type of floors. In fact, they didn't even use small keys to progress through the rooms. Like I said, it was totally different from what every dungeon in Zelda has been like. Instead of using keys, you had to activate the 5 terminals, and then you would be able to go to the main control unit and start it up. So unlike other Zelda games, instead of being restricted to the boss room, or the final door, whatever you want to call it, you can already access that point, but you need the 5 terminals activated first, which I guess you could say act as the small keys of this game. The Divine Beast environment is repetitive and honestly very boring. It's cool the first time you step into one, but it sets a path of the same experience every time. That being said, there was one cool aspect of the Divine Beasts I did like. Because the Divine Beasts are not temples or buildings and are actually movable machines, you can turn points in the Divine Beast to help you throughout the puzzles. I'll touch upon this more in the puzzles category. After the dungeon is completed and you have all 5 terminals unlocked, you can now go to the main control. Of course, something bad is going to happen. It's a Zelda game. You now have to fight a boss that defeated the champions 100 years ago. Hopefully Link isn't sent to meet the same fate. The bosses in this game are Water Blight of Lanayru, Thunder Blight of Gerudo, Wind Blight of Hebra, and Fire Blight of Eldin. Each boss matches its element of the region. Apart from that, the bosses themselves all look very similar. They are all a form of Calamity Ganon's malice. Water Blight throws Trident and summons ice. Wind Blight throws tornadoes at you. Fire Blight can chuck fireballs at you, but can also summon a force field that can be bombed. And well, Thunder Blight, I think, is actually a pretty cool boss. He is very fast and can summon metal pillars from the sky to shock you. He's a pretty big challenge, so that's it with the environment of Breath of the Wild's dungeons, the Divine Beasts. In summary, they all look the same, but have some cool aspects to them and are a new experience. The bosses are also very similar to each other, but they are still a fun fight. Now, Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons. Again, these 4 main dungeons are in the same regions: Eldin, Hebra, Lanayru, and Gerudo. Instead of walking mechanical beasts, they are actual temples. There is the Fire Temple in Eldin, the Water Temple in Lanayru, the Wind Temple in Hebra, and the Lightning Temple in Gerudo. The design of these temples are really cool. They try to make it more like classic Zelda games, with it still being an open world game from the Wilds era. The Wind Temple is in the sky on a magical flying boat. This one is, I guess, a machine, so I guess it's the closest to looking like a divine beast. However, it's surrounded in ice and by a large storm cloud, and it just feels like an awesome new experience. The temples in Tears of the Kingdom do not have small keys like older Zelda games. They're still more like Breath of the Wild's format. Each temple boss, though, is locked behind a door. You have to go to all of the terminals to unlock a lock one by one. With doing this, you don't use your Sheikah Slate, but you actually use your companions with you. Unlike the Breath of the Wild Divine Beast, these temples do not have points you can turn or lift. The Fire Temple is underground deep in the depths of Death Mountain, which is a volcano. There is lava all around the ground and it is very dark. To get around to the next puzzles, you have to use minecarts with the tracks already laid out. Or you could just build a hover bike and cheese the whole thing. Your choice. The Water Temple is also up in the sky. It is the weakest dungeon in the game in my opinion, but even with it being the weakest, it still has its peaks. Fun twist to it. In the Water Temple, there is low gravity, meaning you can float higher and make longer jumps. It also affects fighting enemies, but it was a nice fun twist that was not expected. To get through this temple, there are flying water bubbles that you could jump into and float in. Sounds magical, I know. The final main temple of Tears of the Kingdom is the Lightning Temple. It's probably the hardest one for the reasons of having skilled enemies and being in the middle of the desert. It's also a really long lead up. It takes place in a temple that was buried underground, but it rose up out of the sand when Link activated it. This dungeon actually fits the word dungeon. It just feels like an actual dungeon, and I love it. Okay, now the bosses. Unlike Breath of the Wild, the bosses are all different and unique. The Wind Temple boss is Colgera. It plays some of the best music I've heard in a boss fight. Trust me, it slaps. Colgera is a boss you fight in the air. You can dive through its points or shoot at it with arrows. It can also summon typhoons or tornadoes, whatever you want to call it. The Fire Temple has the boss Marble Goma. You have to use your companion, Yunobo, to fire at its legs. It throws big rock bombs down at you and can also hang off the ceiling in its second stage. Its name is a classic from Ocarina of Time where you fight Queen Goma inside the Great Deku Tree. Speaking of queens, another boss is Queen Gibdo. This is the boss of the Lightning Temple and was the toughest boss out of the dungeons. For me at least. It can spit a long range of sand and can summon sand tornadoes. She can also charge at Link and in her second stage she summons enemies called Gibdos to help her. The Water Temple boss is Muktorok. This may be one of the weirdest bosses I've seen. It's a weird creature, but it can take form of a sludge shark. It spreads sludge over the arena, which slows Link down, and can also spit a large range of sludge at you. So that is the dungeon environment of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. So which one wins the category? Breath of the Wild has a weaker design and theme. It all looks so similar, even the bosses looking similar. Tears of the Kingdom fixes this with bringing more regional dungeons. It's just a fresh new experience too, and they have diverse designs and diverse bosses. So I think this is an easy pick for me. Tears of the Kingdom wins this category. Now let's talk about the different kind of puzzles in the Divine Beast. The Divine Beast Va Meadow, which is the one in Rito Village, has 3 different turning points. You can tilt it up or down or right in the middle. Tilting this Divine Beast can help you get to the terminals in different ways. Before we get to the puzzles inside the beast, let's talk about the lead up, because I think the lead ups count as puzzles too. To start the quest, you go to Rito Village and talk to the Elder. You are then sent to go find Teba, a Rito warrior bird who is determined to take down Va Meadow. You must train your archery skills to be sure you will be fit for the job, and then you get on Teba and fly into the sky. Va Meadow shoots beams at you, but you must bomb arrow different points. Once that is done, you can start the dungeon. I'm not going to go over every puzzle in each dungeon because I would be talking here forever. Instead, I'll just give a basic summary of some of them. In Va Meadow, there are puzzles that consist of using wind to spin a turbine and help with pushing things and tilting the beast to get new angles. Va Ruta is the divine beast in Zora's domain. You have to beat a Lionel and ride on Sidon's back and shock all the targets of Va Ruta. Once this is done, you are in the beast. This dungeon has lots of different turning points on the trunk, and you can also use your Cryonis rune for some of the puzzles, and again find new angles with the trunk. You would also use other runes like Stasis. The next divine beast is Va Rudania. To get up to this dungeon, you go on a stealth mission with the Goron Yunobo, and fire him at the divine beast. You take it down and enter the beast. This dungeon actually has a twist that the others did not have, but only until you get the map. The dungeon is pitch black when you enter, and I really like this because it's something different than the other dungeons. It has 2 different points to rotate, and this dungeon's puzzles consist of turning points in flames because you are in a volcano. The last dungeon of Breath of the Wild is in Gerudo Desert. You start by looking for the missing Thunder Helm and investigate the Yiga clan's hideout. You defeat the boss Master Koga and can now start heading into the divine beast Naboris. You use a sand seal to traverse the desert and stay inside the circle of the Thunder Helm so you don't get beamed at by the divine beast. You must shoot its legs with shock arrows and then board the dungeon. There are 3 different cylinders to spin, and the puzzles have to do with connecting electricity. That's it for the Breath of the Wild dungeons. On to Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom's first dungeon starts with going back to Rito Village, finding a bird companion named Tulin, and heading high into the skies where the Stormwind Arc floats. This is also known as the Wind Temple. Unlike Breath of the Wild, the temples in Tears of the Kingdom do not have points you can turn, and the puzzles in the Wind Temple are really creative and interact with your environment. For example, you build a device that can capture wind to open a door. The wind you use is from Tulin's Gust. Other puzzles include using the icicles from the temple to help spin a circuit to open a door, or connect it to a lever to open a door. The Fire Temple is back in the Elden region. You meet with Yunobo, free him from being mind-controlled by a mask given to him by a phantom Zelda, and use a minecart to get to the top of Death Mountain. Once you're there, the volcano erupts with a giant monster that you fight using a fan plane. After it's killed, you jump down into the depths of the volcano and make your way to the Fire Temple. The Fire Temple has lots of tracks of minecarts, made easier for traveling. You can shift the position of the tracks, and you can combine water with the lava to make a path of stone for the majority of the puzzles. The next temple is the Water Temple. You start this quest by going back to Zora's domain, getting the Mark of the King's Scales, shoot it through a tier, go underground in the Zora Waterworks, then head skyward to the Water Temple. The Water Temple has low gravity, which can help you reach puzzles faster. It also consists of water bubbles where you can conduct electricity into it to open doors, or use it to get through flamed off entries. The Lightning Temple questline starts with going to Gerudo, helping the Gerudo people by fending off attacks of Gibdos, uniting stone pillars to reveal a temple, and entering the temple. This temple actually uses light for its puzzles instead of what you would think, lightning. You reflect light onto surfaces to open doors. It should probably have been called the Light Temple, but yeah, I don't make the rules. There are all the temple puzzles of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Which puzzles are better? I feel that the puzzles in Breath of the Wild were more of a challenge than the ones in Tears of the Kingdom. It required more thinking, and the Tears of the Kingdom puzzles were more fun and had easier solutions, but if I have to be honest, I like a challenge. This point goes to Breath of the Wild. And finally, let's talk about the rewards from doing a dungeon. After doing a large quest like this, you have to be rewarded with something for all of your efforts. In Breath of the Wild, you are told to free the divine beasts around Hyrule, and it will help you put an end to Calamity Ganon. When I first played this game, I thought it just meant you grow stronger. However, in the ending fight with Calamity Ganon, the 4 divine beasts, if they have been freed, all shoot lasers at Ganon. This drains half of his health and helps a lot. After every divine beast, you also get a free heart container, so not only do you get help in the final fight, but you also become stronger in health. And even after that, you still get more. For each dungeon, you get one of the champion's weapons. In Goron City, you get Daruk's Boulder Breaker. In Rito Village, you get Rivali's Great Eagle Bow. In Zora's Domain, you get Mipha's Light Skill Trident. And finally, in Gerudo, you get 2 things. You get the Daybreaker Shield, and the Scimitar of the 7 that was held by the champion Urbosa herself. Okay, that's all the- Nope, that's not even it. After freeing the 4 divine beasts, you have also freed the champions, and their spirits appear in front of you. They promise to help you, guide you with a gift. Rivali gives Link the champion ability, Rivali's Gale. It lets Link summon the wind to push him to great heights. Daruk gives the ability of protection. It surrounds Link with a bright orange shield and can reflect shots. Mipha gives the ability of Mipha's Grace. Mipha's Grace instantly revives you with extra health when you die. And finally, Urbosa's champion ability is summoning lightning to strike. It is called Urbosa's Fury. You also get to see the champions again, so there is that. I'll cover who the champions are in my next video talking about the story elements. Yeah, that's gonna be a big one. Okay, now Tears of the Kingdom's rewards. Instead of giving you an ability after the dungeon, they give it to you before the dungeon to help you through it. With this, you get Tulin's power over wind, which shoots a gust of wind to propel Link forwards when he is gliding. You get Yunobo's power when he curls into a ball and fires himself. This power is good for breaking rocks. Sidon's ability is a shield of water that you can also use to gust water at enemies, and finally, Riju's power is lightning, but instead of coming with a snap from your hands, you shoot an arrow. There is a problem with these powers though. With the powers in Breath of the Wild, all you had to do to activate them was press a button or hold them down like a normal attack or defense. It was very easy to activate. In Tears of the Kingdom, you have to chase the sages across the whole map to finally activate them. It can be a pain when you need a water shield from Sidon, but he keeps running the other direction, and then you die because of him. Or when you need Riju's lightning or Yunobo's power. The only power I don't have a problem with is Tulin's, because when you are gliding, he follows you in the air. You never really need to activate his power on the ground. Other rewards from the dungeons are a heart container and learning some lore. The heart container is the same in Breath of the Wild, and the lore is really cool at first, but then it gets repetitive. I won't go into too much detail, but you get an amazing cutscene and find a secret stone, and you feel so cool piecing things together. Why is Zelda in the past? Why does Ganondorf look so menacing? And what the heck is happening? That's one dungeon cutscene experience. After that, you realize it plays the exact same cutscene for each dungeon, and it just gets really repetitive. After completing the second dungeon, it doesn't feel like you were being rewarded with anything new. You've already had the power for a while throughout the dungeon, and the cutscene isn't even fun to watch. At least in Breath of the Wild, you get to see each of the champions' views and talks with Link. This point easily goes to Breath of the Wild. And with that, Breath of the Wild wins this overall category with 2 points. However, you guys all got to vote on the dungeons in the poll I did for the channel. Tears of the Kingdom won with 81% to 19%. This adds a mini category point to Tears of the Kingdom, evenly balancing today's episode with points of 2 to 2. Because of this tie, each game gets 1 overall point, raising the score of Tears of the Kingdom 3 and Breath of the Wild with 2. It's coming very close, and this series is almost over too. I only have 2 more episodes planned after this one, and I want to thank you all who have been watching this series. I've really enjoyed making it, and I cannot wait to see which game wins. After this episode, I will do a poll just for fun of which game you think is going to win according to this series of videos. Of course, there will also be another poll for next time's episode of which game has the better story. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all next time.